and gentlemen, we are now live. Welcome to a conversation with Floyd Marshall Jr., and I am your humble host. And today I am joined by a prolific filmmaker by the name of Delores Flynn. Um, and we met at the Micho Film Festival. That's the one thing I love about film festivals is that you meet some of the best, some of the brightest, but more importantly, some of the most like-minded people, because
Yeah.
basically you're with family. So it was an absolute pleasure meeting her there. And I started following her on Instagram, and I'm saying, man, she is really killing the game. So I got to have her on
Thank you.
podcast so we could talk about the process and what it is that she does to, bring out films that win so many awards, because Delores Flynn's films win awards on awards on awards. So I'm going to give you guys a little background on Delores, and it's a very interesting journey. I love journeys. But Delores started out, excuse me, Delores Flynn is a graduate of Northwestern University, and she worked for 11 years as a journalist at the South Bend Tribune and the Detroit News, where she spent the bulk of her career covering education, city government, courts, and entertainment news. It was the latter assignments that resonated the most with the Chicago native, who has always been a storyteller at heart. And at a young age, she started crafting stories with her grandmother. And in graduate school, she pursued her love of cinema by learning the art of screenwriting. And after putting her writing aspirations on hold to raise a family, Flynn is making her mark rather in the film industry as a writer director. And her short films, The Color of Hate, an interracial love story set hours before the 1967 Detroit riots, and Mama, a tale about women suffering from postpartum depression, a woman rather, who leaves her family, and which is now streaming on Tubi. And these films have been selected in multiple film festivals and earned, and I said she's a prolific award winner, 24 awards. So she definitely knows what she's doing. She shot one of her most recent shorts, Why Me, about domestic violence awareness in 2021, and it premiered to a private audience with support from an organization by the name of Haven. I'm taking that that's an organization that deals with domestic violence.
That is correct. Yeah, they're a
Okay,
nonprofit here that deals with helps domestic violence survivors and give them support and those trying to find a way out.
that is awesome. So Dolores has also directed two feature films, Cutthroat, streaming on Tubi in June 2022. So you must go check out Cutthroat on Tubi because it's on the platform right now. And The Easy Path, produced by the Union, awaiting distribution in 2022. It's 2024, so you can go check that out as well. And along with her filmmaking endeavors, she has worked on commercials, independent film sets throughout Metro Detroit, and her credits include Pepsi, Full of Detroit Soul, Impact with Gail Godot, a six-part National Geographic documentary series, Black Mafia Family, Stealing Jokes, and I Love You Forever, directed by Kazi David and Alyssa Kalani. And she resides in Michigan with her husband and her two kiddos. So,
Yeah,
Dolores, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it is an absolute pleasure to have you. And, as I was doing some research and found out that you started in journalism. So how did that happen? So you start out in journalism. How did you end up in filmmaking? Where did the transition come in?
Sure. So, like most people who are into filmmaking, I've just always loved films, growing up as a child, and I just love the way they moved people, but never really thought of filmmaking as something that I could do. It wasn't until much later that that idea crossed my mind when I went to graduate school and there was an offering for a screenwriting class. And I was like, hey, I write all the time. Let me try to check this out. So I was actively in my career as a journalist while I was in grad school and took the screenwriting class and just fell in love with that form of writing and pursued that for a number of years. And as you know, like it's a hard thing to kind of crack into. So I tried and tried and tried, got close, a couple of times, was was working on a feature film with a local producer here with the Winans family, the legendary gospel family, and thought that was going to gain some traction. But then they had a family member who wanted to kind of work on that. So then our project got to the wayside. Long story short, I stopped working at the Detroit News when my husband and I decided to have a family. And when my kids got a little bit older, I decided, it's time for me to, get back into, this working world a little bit. But I didn't want to write for a newspaper again, telling the stories that they wanted me to tell. So I figured, let me maybe perhaps get back to this film thing so I can tell the stories that I want to tell. I was passing this place called Motion Picture Institute on the way to church. We passed it all the time. And I just was curious as to what that was. So one day I, went onto the website, after I've been passing so many times on my way to church, and saw that it was a film school. So I figured, let me go to an open house and just see what they're about. And when I tell you, Floyd, when I got on that sound stage, it just felt like home, right? So I'd done all of the schooling and I was like, oh, I don't want to do any more school, but it was a 1-year program. And this was the thing that got me. I was like, I can do like anything for, a year, and not have to do another 4-year, 6-year, whatever rigorous program. And what I loved about it is that everything was hands-on. So the very first week I'm running camera, I'm running sound. They immersed me into all of these different departments. And I went there primarily just to kind of rebuild some contacts in the writing world, because that's what I thought I was just going to pursue specifically. But then I fell in love with directing, and then here I am now, 10 films in that I've written and directed and just having a ball.
So let's go back to the film school. The first week, they had you working with cameras and other equipment. Before that, had you ever worked with camera equipment or anything in the industry?
Never. My only peek into the industry was the craft of writing, and that was it. So the screenwriting class, I learned a few things here and there, but I never, been behind the camera. I never ran audio equipment. I had no idea what a gaffer was or what grips did, and they taught me all of that.
Wow. So with it only being a year, they really didn't have any time to waste. So were you at all intimidated by the fact that they're thrusting you into doing things that you never done before? You had absolutely no idea how to do it. And you're sitting here saying, wait a minute. So you want me to run this camera and I have absolutely no idea what's going on. Were you intimidated by that at all?
I was not. And I think because I came at it, a lot later in life than some of my other counterparts, I've already had all this life experience. So I came in with maybe a different kind of confidence with it. And I figured I don't have time to waste here or money to waste. So let me just dive in with both feet and learn as much as I can. And what I liked about it is they gave you these, while you were fully immersed, they gave you these bite-sized nuggets in a way that it was manageable to pick up. So I'd say the only thing that maybe gave me pause was the editing, because we learned how to edit films, and I'm glad that I know how to do that. And I edited my first 2 films, and then after that, I was like, if I never have to do this again, that's great. But I know how to do that, so I can edit my, things here, projects here and there. So that has been helpful. So the editing gave me pause for a little bit, but then after a while, I definitely got a knack for it. And then running sound, knowing that that's 50% of your movie. I don't want to mess it up. People always talk about, good quality picture, but if the sound is trash, I don't want to watch. So that was running. I ran sound on a couple of films, and that there's a lot that goes into that. So I respect every department because I've been able to work in every department, and happy that I know how all the pieces work together to create this beautiful project at the end.
Now, see, I had all of these questions written down, but talking about this film school has taken me in another direction, because you said something really interesting that I want to kind of flesh out a little bit. You just talked about having worked in every department, and that's phenomenal that film school actually did that. to give you an understanding and a working knowledge of how every department works, because oftentimes filmmakers will concentrate on one thing and not understanding the symbiotic relationship between the DP and an editor, or the
Yeah.
sound person, and the actors, and how all of that works together. So how did going to that particular school and learning it that way help shape you as a filmmaker and a director now?
I believe it was very instrumental because I go in knowing that what all of these departments do, and I know the time and effort that everyone puts into it if they're, really respecting the craft. And then I know it's not all about me as the director. Yes, I am. It's my vision, but they're there to support that vision, and it's taught me to trust in the people that I hire to
Mhm.
do their job, to share with them that vision, but then to trust that they're going to, carry out that vision. But it also allows me to be able to know when they're on the right path or when they aren't, because I've been there.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess when you're directing, you can kind of take a look at something and you're saying, well, and when I used to make films, I always gave my actors freedom, because
Hmm.
I never directed, but I wrote everything and I executive produced. But the one thing a lot of actors would always ask me is, how should I play this? And I'm like, well, I just wrote it. It's yours to do with whatever you want. Do what do what you want. And if you go too far, the director will bring you back.
Hmm.
So do you find yourself, when you're on set, and the fact that you have a working knowledge of everything, do you find yourself allowing your actors to have that freedom, knowing that, with you having such a working knowledge, that if push comes to shove, I can just kind of pull you to the side and say, well, you need to bring this down a little bit, or you need to be a little more exuberant in what you're doing?
Sure, I definitely it's a collaborative effort, so I definitely allow my actors to do what they need to do.
Mhm.
But what I like to do with each of them is to have a meeting where we sit down and we kind of go over the characters, we go over the beats and blocks. So by the time we get to set, we both have an understanding of who that character is, and they've
Mhm.
already brought some ideas and things to the table that we've kind of agreed upon. But I also allow them in the moment, like especially with my film Why Me, those actors, like all of my actors have been phenomenal, but those my two particular leads, they came in with some very specific ideas that they wanted to try. And oftentimes, I'll take a good idea if we're all here to, elevate the project. And they came up with some wonderful suggestions that I'm like, yeah, let's roll with that. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, then, we'll make those tweaks. But yeah, I definitely like to allow them to have that freedom, because they're bringing pieces and they're seeing things that I may not have seen that are just going to enrich the character, enrich the story as well.
So let's go way back, because I
Sure.
understand that you started writing at the age of 7,
Hmm.
along with grandmom. So what drew you to writing at such an early age?
I just think exploring other worlds, making up stories. I just thought it was fun, very, just imaginative. It just allowed you to create your own world and characters, and I just thought that was really cool.
Okay, so from the age of 7, you start writing. Um, the fact that you were creating these other worlds. So you go into middle school, you go into high school, and you're writing. How did you end up doing journalism? How did that happen?
I think it kind of veered towards journalism. I was a
Okay.
part of this Christian organization called the Older Boys and Girls Conference in Chicago, where I grew up, and we would have this summer camp. And at the end of summer camp, they wanted us to be able to share with, the greater community or our parents or whomever what happened. So we came up with this idea of putting together a newsletter. So I would be in charge. So I was in charge of putting together that newsletter, assigning people different topics. And so I think from that, the idea of journalism was born out of that, coming up with these stories that we wanted to tell based upon camp, putting all together in a newsletter and in a compelling format that people would want to read. And that kind of drew me into the world of journalism by the time I got to college.
Okay. So you did that for 11 years, eh, doing different stories.
Yeah.
How did that prepare you for screenwriting? Because I'm sure being a journalist for 11 years, you've seen some things.
Yeah.
So well, let me put it this way. Does that make your writing different from someone who just went strictly from high school to a 4-year college, let's just say UCLA, and they decide, okay, I want to take up screenwriting at UCLA, but they don't have the type of life experiences and they haven't seen what you've seen. So how did that shape your writing and how you write now?
Well, I think my stories tend to be a little grittier, a little darker, because of that. And I think everyone draws when they write, they draw upon life experience.
Mhm.
So everyone's writing is going to be a little bit different. But I think my stories, based upon what I've seen in life and what I've been through, um, taking a look at complex relationships. I know things aren't always, black and white. There's a lot of gray area out there. So my stories tend to kind of focus on that, those complex relationships where people are, dealing with their identity, where they maybe have made some poor choices in life and now they have to, kind of backtrack or rethink or, get a second chance and things like that. So I think having worked in newspapers and covering, cops, court, and city governments, you see a lot of people who make some poor choices and,
Mhm.
have to seek redemption. So a lot of my stories, tend to focus on that.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about the fact that you're writing, you're a journalist,
Hmm.
your husband decide, okay, we want to start a family. The newspaper isn't really keen on part-time work. So you end up taking a buyout from your employer. Now, when you did that, did you kind of just put everything on hold, or did you decide at that point in time to, okay, well, since I'm not at the newspaper anymore, it's time for me to pursue writing and filmmaking full time? How did that work?
Well, I really took a great deal of time just off and just
Okay.
focused on family, raising my kids, being with them day to day, going to the park and just watching them grow and things of that nature. It wasn't, I say, and towards, once they got in like kindergarten, first grade and starting to like be in school and I had a little bit more time that then I actually I reached out to a few magazines and did a few pieces here and there, just freelance work just to see if, that would, suffice for me. And then I
Mhm.
realized, this just isn't it. Cause again, I'm just taking assignments and these aren't the stories at this point in my life that I want to tell. So that's when, having passed that MPI, I was like, okay, maybe I get back to the screenwriting.
Okay. Okay. So now are you doing is filmmaking it? Is that the full-time gig for you?
That is the full-time gig. Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you start making films, you graduate school, you start making films, you come back to it. Why directing? What drew you to directing? Because you were
What drew me?
writing.
Mhm.
So where did the switch come in? Or the shift come in?
I Right. I still write,
Mhm.
but I like the idea of creating the shot list and crafting the story then with pictures was just very compelling to me, and not just leaving that. I've sat and I've nurtured this thing this entire way. Now let me, I kind of have the visuals in my mind, and then once I understood how that all worked, I was like, well, yeah, I can do this, and I can, take it just one step further, and actually direct it. And then I also love working with actors and fleshing out those characters even more and getting that perspective
Hmm.
from them.
S- So you direct a lot of what you write, or have you actually directed what you have? Um, how does that work? Directing something you've written, because oftentimes when you run into someone who writes and directs, you have some that are flexible, but then you have others that are married to the script,
Hmm.
and they're like, you better do it the way I wrote it, and that's it. I was never
Sure.
that way, because you never have any, your actors never, they never really have any freedom. So you are the type of person, from what I gather and hearing you talk earlier, are the type of person, okay, I'm going to give, how much leeway do you give your actors? I'll just say that because I'm rambling, but how much
Yeah.
leeway do you actually give your actors?
Well, I will let them go so far as, depending upon the scene,
Hmm.
we'll try some ad libs and things of that nature. But what I always have to go back to is, what is the intent and the heart of the scene?
Mm.
As long as we stay true to the intent of the scene and the theme of the entire piece, then that allows us some room to play. Once we start to veer from that, then that's when I have to, rein you back in.
Oh, okay. So you've worked on various projects, commercials, National Geographic, the Black Mafia family, things like that. It's a pretty wide range of work and a diverse range of work. So what's your process in having to prepare for so many different types of things that you're shooting?
When it comes to directing,
Yeah. So
or
how do you maintain that flexibility, that I guess a thoughtful flexibility, because you have to bring something different to each thing that you're directing because it's so different? Or do you
Mhm.
basically approach directing one way, and whatever you're directing, you make it fit your vision?
No, I think I definitely have a vision for each project, but I also
Mm,
try to stay true to, and chat with that writer if it's not something that I've written. I've
mhm.
found myself in that position like 3 times now, where I've directed a project that I haven't written. But I'll sit down and I'll talk to the writer to make sure that we're kind of on the same page, so that we can have a cohesiveness throughout the piece. But I try to, I guess, I just stay open minded. I think I forgot what was the question again, Floyd.
Oh, good girl. I got to go back, and the flexibility as far as
Yeah.
your directing.
I think as long as
When you when I'm
I
sorry,
think
when you no, go ahead.
no, I think as long as if I'm connecting with the piece, and I think that's where the heart of it comes in. If I can
Okay.
connect with the piece, um, then we're going to kind of flow with that.
Okay. So what happens when there is a clash of ideas? You've been doing this for quite some time.
Hmm.
So I'm sure that this has happened. What happens when there is a clash of ideology, and not even the writer, because the writer is not the head honcho on that set.
Right.
It's usually the person writing the checks.
Yeah.
So the executive producer comes down and they're like, you know what, Dolores, I don't like the direction you're going in. What ends up happening in a situation like that? And this is for anyone that will be listening in the future. If they're talking about, I want to direct something, but again, an executive producer is writing the checks, and they may run into something like that. If that's ever happened to you, how did
No,
you go about handling that?
that has definitely come up
Okay.
on one of the first feature films that I did. And one of the scenes just wasn't quite working, and I saw that clearly, and just hadn't had a chance to kind of work through things. And the person writing the checks came in, and they had some very interesting words to say about everything, and for me, I'm very calm, and I like to stay cool. There's no need for shouting or anything of that nature. So I just took a breath and just kind of regrouped, and at the end of the day, I try to marry their points with what they want, and try to still stay true to the vision that I came up with.
Okay. So let's talk about the fact that you're a woman,
Hmm.
you're black,
Yep.
and you are in a male dominated white industry. It is what it is.
Hmm.
How do you maintain your, I don't even know if power is the right word that I'm looking for, because I'm sure you've bumped heads with people. If you come to the set, they may not know who you are, they may not know your body of work, and they don't think that you are who you say you are, and you get that pushback from the DP who may be, have been around for 25 years. How do you, as a black female director, keep order on your set if you run into crew that may not um, want to listen to what you have to say as the person that's actually running the set?
Um, guess it kind of goes back to what my mother used to always say, just kind of kill them with kindness.
Mhm.
I'm always the person that still, no matter what, I like to stay orderly, calm, keep my cool, treat you in a respectful manner. Um, I will point out the things that I may not agree
Mhm.
with that person, but always just being polite and respectful, because kindness at the end of the day, I think that's what we should all have on set. Um, I think I've been fortunate in the sense that if someone really hasn't wanted me there,
Mhm.
they haven't been truly just vocal in my face about it,
Okay.
but I'm sure that that day will come. But I think I've presented myself in such a way that um, people know that I mean business when
Mhm.
I'm there, and I'm not there to waste anyone's time or money for that matter. And they see that, and I've noticed that people respond to it. So if they saw me in some way and they just watched me work for a little bit, I've been able to change minds.
Okay. Okay. So sometimes I guess you'll have people that will take a wait and see attitude. I ain't gonna say nothing, but I'm just gonna sit over here and see what she does. And when they see that
Exactly.
you about your business, then oh, okay. And sometimes it's not even a power grab. It's just that I don't know you. I don't
Correct.
know how you work. And this is important to me, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to F it up. And if you don't,
Correct.
great. If you do, we told you so. Okay. So, okay. But let's talk about your films. Um, your
Sure.
films, they lean a little more toward themes with a serious and message and undertones. Now, we talked a little bit about that earlier with you, doing the journalism. But
Hmm.
did you specifically set out to write films like that, or when you sit down to write, do the characters just start talking to you and you say, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to go with that." How does that work for you? How does that writing process work for you?
I think for me, it comes with a topic or a theme, or
Mhm.
what's going on in my life at that time, and then the stories come from that. And then once I have an idea for a topic, then I kind of think more about the characters and the storyline, and and go from there.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let's talk about mommy and being a filmmaker. Um, it can be challenging
Yeah.
because, I've been doing this for 19 years. Um, my daughters basically grew up watching me go to auditions, watching me, go to work and then coming home and then going right back out because, okay, we got to go shoot film, watching me
Right.
do film festivals. So I can't even really say there's a balance, but how do you keep the semblance of balance, being a mom, being a wife, and being a full-time filmmaker? How do you manage that?
By the skin of my teeth some days.
Okay.
I don't know. I just do the best I can. And I just try to keep an open communication with everybody about what I'm working on, and what the family needs are at the time. And it's a juggling act. As you know, I try to. My main goal, is my family and making sure they're healthy and happy. So I make sure that those needs are met, and then I also rely on my family and my friends around me. If I am away on a project, and my husband, he works in the automotive industry, and the two of us just can't be somewhere, I
Mhm.
rely on my network. Can you pick up this kid? Can you take this kid over there? And it really truly does take a village, sometimes. And so I've been blessed that I've been able to rely on family and friends to kind of pick up the slack here and there when I can't be there if I'm on a project.
Hmm.
And
So,
thankfully, my kids think what I'm doing is cool.
oh, that's
So they're
okay.
always kind of like, what are you working on? And so they're kind of, that they also kind of give me grace because of that, if I do drop something.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, you know what? A question I forgot to ask you.
Sure.
You decide to do this full time. a long time ago,
Hmm.
and you tell your husband, babe, I'm gonna do filmmaking and I'm gonna do it full time. As much as you can divulge,
Yeah.
what was that conversation like?
Yeah, that was one, like, excuse me, one of those. And I think once he kind of understood, like, he always understood my passion for it. And I think it was just, again, just open communication and understanding what it takes and the time and the energy. And it's not like a regular gig, it's a contract job. And while you're working on one, you have to, try to get the other one going. But I think he's been very supportive and understanding at that. And there have been some compromises where it's like, okay, we're just because of putting family first. There's some jobs that I just absolutely can't take because family first, and I don't regret any of those decisions, because at the end of the day it was just like God was shielding me from something as well, and then something. And had I been on those things, the thing that I really didn't even foresee,
Hmm.
I wouldn't have been able to work on that. So other opportunities have come. So it's just been a lot of support and give and take. So I'm really grateful to Rod for allowing me this space to grow, because it's not an easy business to be in at all. And he sees that I'm actively trying.
What's your husband's name again?
His name is Rod Flynn.
Rod. Well, shout out to Rod Flynn because, kudos to you, sir, because again, this is not a hard business. And I remember when I first started doing it, and I went to the American Black Film Festival and I took Bill Duke's acting class because I started out as an actor. And I went to the ABFF, I think back in 2006. And I'm sitting in Bill Duke's class, and he said, if you want to be an actor, then no, he said, if you want to be in movies, then make one. He said, make one.
Hmm.
So I came home and told my wife, I'm starting a film company. And she was like, what? Because I drive for public transportation. I have 30 years in. Um, so I was well established in my career. And when I told her, she was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be a producer. I want to blah, 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 blah. And it was rough going at first because
Sure.
that came out of nowhere. So for you to, but over the years, she's like, okay, if, you're serious about this, you're in this, I'm with you 100%. So for you to have his support means a lot because I'm sure there have been days when you've come home and you're like, I don't know if, well, let's talk about that. Let me ask you about that.
Yeah.
On those days, we've all had them if you've been in this business any length of time. When you come home and you're like, I can't do this anymore. I can't. It's just too much. It is beating me down and I have nothing left. So if you've ever had that conversation, and again, whatever you can divulge, because I'm not trying to get all up in your business,
Sure.
but what are the conversations that he's had with you when you've come home like that, where the tank is just empty and you're like, babe, I don't think I got this anymore. So what was that like?
Yeah, I think in those moments it's like, he listens and he hears me, because you
Mhm.
just gotta get it out. And then I'm reminded of, like, well, why are you doing this? Like, you're telling these stories to raise awareness, to help people. And then I'm reminded of a friend, who told me that she watched one of my films and it changed her perspective. And he was like, if that's what you're striving for and you still have stories to tell, then you're not done.
Mm,
So
yeah.
you gotta keep going, and there's gonna be hard roads, and you're gonna do some things that you may not want to do, or it's just gonna be tough. And he's also brought up the fact that like both of our parents, our mothers, like they did things and they stayed in jobs and they continued to hustle to provide for us as we were growing up. It's like they didn't give up. You don't give up.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about Me Show, film festival that
Yeah,
I love.
it was fantastic.
It was. You get the notification now. Which film? Because unfortunately, I got there on a Thursday. So a lot of, because I'm part of a nonprofit back in Philadelphia, and we were actually putting on a production. So I couldn't get there to Thursday. So a lot of films I missed, and
Sure.
unfortunately, I did not get to see your film. We are going to remedy that. But
Yes, we are.
you get the email to go to the Micho Film Festival. Can you just explain that feeling? Because I remember getting those emails and just bursting out into tears because you're like, wow, the hard work paid off. So what? So and Micho is a phenomenal film festival. So
Very much.
which film did
It
you have
was
entered?
it's the film Why Me?
Okay.
And yeah, I was on cloud nine. I was actually was traveling to St. Louis and going to Poplar Bluff, Missouri to visit my mom and my cousin um, at the time. And this film is based upon my cousin's life. So to
Mm,
be able to have get into the Michelle Film Festival on my way to visit them and be able to share that news was just like I shouted. I opened the email and I probably skipped and hopped around my hotel room because it was just really I was really honored, to get into that and just to know that, what they strive for, Black excellence and
mhm.
diversity and all of that. And I just really wanted to showcase my film there, and I was happy to do so.
So Why Me was based on a true story. Your cousin, you said?
Yeah, so my cousin was unfortunately in an abusive relationship with her husband
Mm,
for a number of years, and I had no idea like that all of these things were happening to her, and she was having a number of eye surgeries, and I was like, okay, well, you just had an eye surgery, like what's going on with this and what's going on with that, and the answers she was giving just they weren't adding up, Floyd. So my investigative journalism skills kick in. I'm asking this question, I'm asking that question, and I'm just like, yeah, no, no, no. So eventually she just kind of shared with me what was going on, and she didn't want anybody to know at the time because of the shame and all of the other things that come along with it. And it was a while later that she expressed that she had been writing about it and wanted to kind of tell her story in some way, shape, or form. And I asked her if she was okay if I took a crack at it
mhm.
in a short film. So I interviewed her, got more of the story, came up with a bit of an outline that she approved, and just kind of went to town for a couple of months writing it and then showing it to friends and getting their feedback and, kind of, tweaking it until it became what it is today. Why me?
So now, was she still with this?
No,
Okay.
no, she was no longer with him, um, thankfully, and was out of that situation. So yeah, she was no longer with him.
Oh, okay. Phenomenal. So how's she doing?
She's doing really well. She got a new job not too long ago. She's a nurse, and she's now working for the state and really doing well. So I'm
Oh,
I'm very happy
that's
for her, and she got to see the film, and of course it brought up a lot of things. She said it was both therapeutic and both hard to watch, but at the end of the day, um, she wanted to help other people with her story,
mhm.
and so that's what we set out to do. Like we said, even if we help just one person, showcasing signs or symptoms, or open a conversation, if somebody else could see any see themselves or their family members in that film, then we would have done our job.
Yeah, because oftentimes, like you said, it's the stigma of shame that keeps a lot of people silent. So you actually making that film and her being courageous enough to share her story, I am more than sure somebody was sitting in an audience somewhere watching that film and was saying to themselves, I got to get the hell out.
Hmm.
And that is what makes it worth it when you're getting the shit kicked out of you in this.
Yeah.
When because I remember years ago I made a film called A Child of God. It was about a young man transitioning and to be a female, and we showed the film, and after the film this man came up to me and he said that he had kicked his daughter out because she came out as a lesbian, and he said he hadn't spoken to her in years. He said, but
Wow.
because the film didn't end well for the young man who transitioned to a young lady, it didn't end well. But he came up to me and he said, "Yo, man, I gotta call my daughter." He said, "I gotta call my daughter." He said because I can't. And he said, "I ain't spoke to her in 6 years." He said, "But I gotta go home and call her." And I'm sitting there with my mouth wide open. I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
So you really don't know the power that you possess when you make films of that nature. But enough about me. Back to you because
No,
I have a
that's great.
question. Yeah, but
What's up?
it really, and I'm a crier, so I'm like, oh my god, sometimes I'm crying. But it just really makes it worthwhile when you're sitting there saying, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But like you said, if you help one person, so if I helped you talk to your daughter again, all of those late nights where I had to shoot to 2 in the morning and be at work at 5 made
It's
it
all
worth it.
worth it.
It made it
It's
worth it.
it's totally worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah, the conversations that I've had at, various screenings, just kind of reaffirm for us that yes, we did this with purpose and it is resonating with people who, saw themselves like, that was me, or that was a friend of mine, or a young man came up to me and said, you made me think about some of the choices that I've made or some of the things, and I kind of have to kind of reevaluate some things in myself. And I'm just like, wow, that's absolutely incredible. Just things that I hadn't, couldn't even imagine. So the conversations have been eye opening.
yeah, because you know what, and that's interesting what you just pointed out because oftentimes when a film like that is made, it is from the standpoint of the victim, but you don't think about the perpetrator. And if the perpetrator will look at this and come to a conclusion like that young man did, because it doesn't sound like he was a victim, it sounds like he was a perpetrator.
Hmm.
So you're not seeing what you're doing because you're in it. But now you're sitting back watching you on the screen and all your glory. And you're
Yeah,
sitting there saying, wow, so that's what I am.
right.
Is that who I want to be? And
Exactly.
yeah, that's powerful because then he's like, ooh, because if again, I'm a dad, I have two daughters.
Yeah.
What would I look like putting my hands on a woman?
Hmm.
But oftentimes because you're in it, you're not looking at it that way. She did something to make you mad, so I'm going to handle that. But then again, when they see a film like yours, now you're sitting there saying, "Ow,
Exactly.
oh, wow." But that's great. But let's talk about
Thanks.
financing
Yeah. Oh,
because
yeah.
you produced a number of films. So how did you go about getting the financing? Because I'm a part of this Facebook group, Black Screenwriters, and one
Hmm.
of the questions that they asked the other day, well, it was, what is one of the most difficult things that you have um, a problem getting? And a lot of people said funding. So how do you go about, as much as you can disclose,
Sure.
how do you go about getting funding for your films?
Sure. I'd say the ones that through my production company, Delo Productions, it's been so up until this point, it's been a combination of crowdfunding, reaching out to various people, and not even the traditional sense of crowdfunding because they would always take a percentage, but using those same methods that you would use in crowdfunding and still sending out the emails and letting people know what the project is, and then allowing people to contribute to the project. So it's been a combination of the crowdfunding and some personal funds. And then I've been fortunate on three of the projects that I was hired in, as the director. So the projects came with money.
Mm,
And it was just a matter of me, in some cases, one project solely just as the director. So someone else is, funding it, producing it, and all of that. And then in some cases, I was allowed, to bring on crew. So a combination of both. And then for my upcoming projects, it's going to be reaching out to investors and trying to get them to buy into the story and wanting to be a part of those projects.
okay, so when you say reaching out to investors, now are these people that you have relationships with, or are these people that someone is going to introduce you to? Through the
It's,
strength
it's
of the relationships that you have with them?
it's a combination of that. People that I know, people that I've had a working relationship with on other film sets, and know my work and know the type of stories that I want to tell and wanting to support that in some way, shape, or form, and either with their own funding or introducing me to people with financing. And things of that nature. So that's kind of the route we're taking at this time. And then also reaching out to some production companies as well.
So, relationships, because this is
Yes.
something that I always ask. Because one of the questions regarding funding was someone said, well, people gatekeep their contacts and they end up wanting to pitch the contacts as opposed to having me pitch the contacts. And when I saw that question, the first thing that's jumped out to me was, well, why would someone want to gatekeep their contacts and not have you talk to them? So, how important is it to build relationships with people? But more importantly, how important is it to be someone that is trustworthy enough that someone would say, I'm going to actually put this person in touch with Delores? Because I don't think dude got that maybe the reason that they're not putting you into direct contact with their connect is it took them a while to build that and they
Yeah.
don't want to screw it up
Don't
because
want to mess up that. Yeah. That's their
because
name on the line at the end
right.
of the day. Yeah. Relationships are, I mean, that's a lot of this business is, your relationships and who you know, and then how you present yourself. Like when you're on set in any capacity, are you a jackass? Are you, cool to work with? What's your demeanor like? What's your work ethic like? So I think all of that comes into play. And in terms of, someone connecting me, I'm fine with either. My work, I think, will speak for itself. I hope, in a favorable manner, but I'm okay with saying, this is, here's my pitch deck. This is kind of what we're going for. And if they want to speak further with me, then, I would love that opportunity. Of course, I would love to pitch it myself, but I also agree and understand that, they may have worked and developed this relationship and maybe they're not ready to put me in touch. But I think that I presented myself in such a manner that a lot of people or the bulk of people would be okay with me chatting, with their contact, maybe with them, on the other line or at least doing an introduction
But you know
and
what?
then letting it go from there.
Yeah. But you know what? Having met you in person, you're a phenomenal person. I didn't know you that long,
Well,
but
thank you.
your spirit. Um, I don't think people would have a problem because talking to a lot of people in this business that have really done some things, the one thing that they all say to a person is people work and invest with people that they like.
Very true.
So I don't think, again, having met you, that people would actually have a problem with you because I'm sure your body of work is stellar. But
Thank you.
you can have a stellar body of work and be a straight up asshole, and they're like, I'm not
Ex-
messing with Delores.
exactly.
I'm not because you know what? Yeah, she good, but it ain't worth me. It ain't worth the
It's not
aggravation.
the headache. Yeah.
Right. So that goes back to what you said earlier about just being nice.
Yeah. And how you present yourself always. Yeah. I always, I like to come from a place where I'm being humble, where I'm learning from others, trying to be collaborative, and then just treating everybody with the respect that I want. Because at the end of the day, we're all human and we're all in this world, and kindness just goes a long way.
Yeah. So we're almost done because I know you have things to do, so I don't want to keep you all
No,
night.
this has been great.
Yeah. But just got a couple more questions for you.
Of course.
What are 5 things you wish someone would have told you about this business when you first got in it?
Oh, wow.
I just
Five
added
things.
that. I just added that today. I said I'm gonna sound smart and add that in.
5 things I had wish they had told me. Wow, I don't know. People have shared a lot. Like I think I've been very fortunate where people have told me. I think
Or 5 things you wish you would have known.
um 5 things that I wish I had known. Or maybe 5 things that I even wish I had, because I didn't really believe at first networking was key and those relationships were key until I was there, until I was in it. I wish I had known more about, like that you're someone has said in the past that like you're only as good as this project, or but you're always constantly having to not reinvent yourself, but you're constantly having to, seek the funding or kind of build up to the next project, where you think you're like riding this high with this one project, right? But then you don't realize that you're starting from the ground floor again, with the next one, building the funding, doing, all of this stuff. So things like that is kind of, I wish I kind of had a little bit more foresight, in going into it. But now that I'm here, I'm just, I'm in the thick of it.
Well, that's
I'm just
great.
gonna go with the flow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Excuse me. What are your 5 favorite films?
Ooh, 5 favorite films. For the longest time, The Shawshank Redemption.
Love
Yeah,
that film.
love that film.
Multiple times I've
Um,
watched that film. Never gets old.
every time it's on, I have the screenplay and the forward, all of that. I love it. And again, like this bleak situation, but then there's this hope at the end. I love The Goonies. It's just a great,
Good movie.
ensemble, movie. Loving Basketball, like on repeat over and over and over again. My husband's like, again with Love and Basketball. I'm like, if it's on, I'm gonna watch it. It's just
Hmm.
like The Shawshank Redemption. Memento. I love non-linear storylines, and the first time I saw that, years ago, I was just like, oh my gosh, I really, really love that. And then for the longest time, I would say Seven used to be in my top 5, but I just
Mm.
saw Origin from Ava DuVernay, and I think that has knocked it out. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that's a part of my top 5, because that movie, and just, yeah, it really, it has stayed with me. So yeah, those would be my top 5.
Wow. So what's next? What's next on the agenda for you?
Next for me, I am currently in post-production on a film for a dance school about linking and building community through the arts. So we're gonna get that packaged up as a short film for them, that they're gonna use to showcase before their next professional black box performance. And then I have 2 feature films that I'm currently shopping around, and getting those pitch decks and trying to build that financing and all of that. So that's kind of what's next, in terms of my personal projects. And then I've been asked to produce a few projects. So I am um, kind of gearing up for those. One that'll be shot, next summer, and then one that we're trying to get shot this summer about a woman who thinks she's Blanche Dubois from the
Mm.
streetcar named Desire, but
Oh,
in the end we find out that she's a Hurricane Katrina survivor,
oh, wow.
instead. So again, things with, a message, that people can kind of, you know continue to talk about well after they've left the theater. So
Wow.
producing, writing, and directing those things in the future.
Wow. That sounds really interesting because, and just from what you said, what I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, is maybe that was one of her favorite movies, favorite characters. And because of the trauma of the hurricane, she retreated into that character to kind of close off from having to actually live the trauma and everything that's happened from Hurricane Katrina. That sounds really interesting. I may be wrong, but who knows?
No, it's definitely very, very compelling. The director for that, that
Mm,
just brought me on, that I'm going to be helping produce it. Like when it'll be a powerful piece when it's done. Definitely, for
wow.
sure.
So where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at D Flynn, DeeFlynn, and the number 1, and then on Facebook, just Delores Flynn.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an absolutely amazing conversation. I love doing these because I learn something new every single day. And Dolores, you definitely have to come back after you've completed a couple of your feature films because first of all, I want to see him, and I want to talk about him, because I'm all about having people on that can actually teach filmmakers the correct way to do this business, because that's exactly what it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you follow Delores Flynn on Instagram. Can we get that handle one more time?
Yes, D Flynn #1. DEEFLYNN, the #1.
So make sure you follow her on Instagram so you can see everything that she has going on. And when she starts her crowdfunding campaign, please contribute to that campaign. Because here's the thing: if you want to see a certain thing on the screen, the best way to do that is to actually support the filmmakers that are bringing those types of projects to life. You can't complain about, well, I'm not seeing this, I'm not seeing this. And then when someone is saying, hey, this is the type of film that I'm putting out, and you're like, well, I'm not donating $1, $5, whatever the amount,
Yeah.
everything. Trust me, as a former filmmaker, a quarter helps. You think I'm lying? That's a
Every
quarter less.
little bit helps. Yeah.
That's 25 cents less you need. So
That's right.
because
Thank you so much, Floyd. I really appreciate you.
yes, yes, yes. I appreciate you as well. And ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Floyd Marshall Jr. So we can share these phenomenal episodes. And if you're on Apple, please subscribe to the Apple Podcast and leave a comment. If you liked the show, if you didn't like the show, I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you didn't like it, and if you where I could improve, please share that with me, so I can improve. Because again, my thing is, I want to bring you guys the best people possible. Delores is one of those. She's definitely going to be back, because again, I love learning and listening to my phenomenal guests as well, their community, their family. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me on a conversation with the incomparable Delores award-winning filmmaker Flynn. And I will end it as I end them all. Love this like a hobby, but above all, let's treat this like a business. Good night, everyone.
Good night.